Look, let me tell you the whole story from the beginning. It all started in a boardroom that was way too quiet. The boss, Frank Miller, had just told everyone that Sarah Jenkins was fired. He used fancy words like strategic realignment, but everyone sitting at that table knew the real reason. Sarah had told us she was pregnant just 5 days before. She was over the moon about it. I was so angry I felt sick. I am the vice president, so I had tried to talk Frank out of it in private, but he would not listen. He told me the discussion was over. I felt completely trapped. I could not save her job at the company, but doing nothing felt like I was agreeing with his terrible decision. That night, Sarah called me crying. She was terrified about money and losing her health insurance right when she needed it most. Hearing her panic, I had a crazy idea pop into my head. I could not hire her back at the company, but I could hire her myself. I told her right then on the phone, I am going to hire you. Personally. I laid out my insane plan. I would use my own family savings to pay her her full salary. She would work from home as a secret consultant. She would keep doing the exact same work for my team, but no one could ever know. She would be a ghost. I made up a fake name for her, S. Jemison. It was a huge risk for me and my wife, but it felt like the only right thing to do. The next few months were the most stressful of my life. Sarah and I became secret partners. We used special apps to talk. She sent me her work, and I would pretend it came from this amazing new consultant. My team started doing better than ever. My boss Frank even congratulated me. He said, "See, the team is better without the dead weight." He meant Sarah. That compliment made me feel like I was going to be sick. I was lying to everyone. I lied to my team. I lied to my wife about where our money was going. I lied to Frank every single day. The guilt was eating me alive. Then Frank decided to put my team's project, the one Sarah was secretly doing all the work for, front and center at a huge company-wide meeting. He wanted me to present it as proof that his leadership and his decision to fire people was brilliant. I was terrified. The spotlight was now directly on my secret. The day of the big meeting arrived. Frank gave a speech bragging about his tough decisions. Then I presented the project. It went great. Everyone was impressed. Then Frank took the microphone back to gloat some more. He clicked to the last slide, but it was not the simple thank you slide I made. Someone had changed it. It was a slide giving credit to everyone who worked on the project. And right there, in big letters, was Sarah Jenkins's real name. I froze. I looked over and saw Linda from HR. She gave me a small nod. She knew. She had done this on purpose. Frank saw the name. His face turned purple. The whole room went dead silent. He pointed at the screen and hissed into the microphone, "What is this?" Then he turned to me, his eyes burning with rage. "David, why is her name on my screen?" In that moment, I had a choice. I could lie, or I could tell the truth. I felt a strange calm. I picked up my microphone and said, "Because she did the work, Frank. You fired an asset. I invested in one." The silence in the room was heavier than anything I have ever felt. Frank looked like he had been punched. He put the microphone down, turned around, and walked off the stage without another word. He left me and hundreds of stunned employees in complete chaos. Linda from HR came over to me and whispered, "That was brave and stupid. Meet me in my office in 10 minutes. Frank's lawyer is already on the phone." I went to her office, my heart pounding. She told me Frank was preparing to fire me for fraud and might even sue me. He was offering me a deal to resign quietly and never speak of it again. If I did not take the deal, he would destroy me. I was ruined. I went home and had to tell my wife everything. She was devastated that I had lied to her and used our savings. In the middle of our painful conversation, I got a text from Sarah. She said Frank had called her and offered her a lot of money to stay quiet and not talk to me. He was trying to split us up. I rushed to her house. We talked about our impossible situation. If I fought Frank, he would crush us both. Then Sarah looked at me with determined eyes. She said, "We go public first. We tell everyone the truth. We tell them he fired me for being pregnant and is now threatening you for trying to help. It was a scary idea. It would burn all the bridges. There would be no going back. But as I looked at her, I knew she was right. It was the only way to fight back. I took out my phone. I had to make a choice. Call Frank and surrender, or call a reporter and start a war. I looked at Sarah and knew what I had to do. I started scrolling through my contacts, my finger hovering over the screen, ready to change everything forever. My finger hovered over the reporter's name on my phone screen. Sarah was watching me, her face pale but determined. I knew calling my friend Mike, who worked for a big business news website, would be like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. There would be no putting the fire out. But looking at Sarah, and thinking about Frank's smug, angry face, I knew I couldn't back down. I took a deep breath and pressed the call button. Mike answered on the third ring. David Chun. Long time no talk, man. What's up? He said, his voice cheerful. I got straight to the point. Mike, I have a story for you. A big one. But if I tell you, my career is probably over. And my company might try to sue me. The line got quiet. Okay, Mike said, his tone turning serious and professional. I'm listening. Tell me everything. And I did. I told him about Sarah's pregnancy, Frank firing her, my secret plan to pay her myself, the fake consultant name, the big meeting, the credit slide, my public confession, and Frank's threats. I told him everything. I was putting my entire life in his hands. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. Wow, David. That is a story. That's a huge story. You understand that if I publish this, it will be a massive deal, right? It's got everything. Corporate greed, sexism, a secret conspiracy, a public showdown. I know, I said, my voice tired. That's why I'm calling you. I need someone to tell the truth before Frank can spread his lies. Okay, Mike said. I need you and Sarah to be ready to talk to me on the record, officially. And I need any proof you have. Emails, texts, anything. Can you do that? I looked at Sarah. She nodded yes, without hesitation. We can do that, I told him. Good. I'm going to start writing. I'll be in touch soon. And David? Hang in there. We hung up. The die was cast. The war was officially starting. The next 48 hours were a blur of pure fear and waiting. I barely slept. I avoided my wife's hurt and angry looks. I gathered all the evidence I could find. I had records of the bank transfers to Sarah. I had all our encrypted messages planning the work. I had the original presentation slides and the fake Jemison email address I created. Mike called me back the next evening. The story is going live at 7 a.m. tomorrow, he said. It's the lead story on the site. It's called The Ghost Employee, a tale of pregnancy discrimination and corporate retribution. It's strong. Get ready for the storm. The morning the story came out, I sat at my kitchen table, my phone in my hand, just refreshing the website. At exactly 7 a.m., it popped up. The headline was huge. My heart was pounding. I read the article. Mike had done a fantastic job. It was fair, it was factual, and it made Frank and the company look absolutely terrible. It quoted me and Sarah extensively. It laid out the whole timeline. Within minutes, my phone started to explode. It was texts from co-workers, former colleagues, even my parents. The story was spreading like wildfire. By 9 a.m., the company's stock price started to drop. By 10 a.m., news vans were parked outside the company's headquarters. I got a call from Linda in HR. Her voice was strained. David, what have you done? I told the truth, Linda. You were the one who forced my hand, remember? There was a long pause. I know. I just didn't think you'd go nuclear. The board of directors is in an emergency meeting. Frank is fighting for his job. They're panicking. The lawyers are telling them this is a public relations nightmare and they need to contain it immediately. What does that mean? I asked. It means they might throw Frank under the bus to save the company, she said. They might offer you and Sarah a settlement to make this all go away. A real one, not the bullying deal Frank offered you. Later that afternoon, I got a formal email from the company's board of directors, not from Frank. They were requesting a meeting with me and Sarah, with our lawyers present, to discuss a resolution. It was happening. The pressure was working. But Frank wasn't done yet. Just as Sarah and I were getting ready to find a lawyer, I got another email. This one was from Frank himself. The subject line was simple: one last chance. The email was furious. It accused me of libel and of trying to extort the company. He said if I did not immediately sign a document retracting everything I said to the press and publicly apologize, he would not only sue me for everything I owned, but he would also file a criminal complaint against Sarah, accusing her of fraud and theft of intellectual property for the work she did as a consultant. My blood ran cold. This was even worse than I imagined. He was threatening to have Sarah arrested. He was playing the dirtiest of dirty games. I showed the email to Sarah. Her face went white. "He can't do that, can he?" she whispered, her hand instinctively going to her stomach. I didn't know. I felt like I was in over my head. The initial victory from the news story vanished, replaced by a new, deeper fear. Frank was powerful and he was ruthless. He was showing us that he was willing to destroy us completely. I didn't know what to do next. The board wanted to talk, but Frank was threatening to destroy our lives. I had to make another choice. Do I trust the board to be reasonable? Or do I assume Frank will win and I need to run? I looked at Sarah's terrified face and knew I had to protect her. I picked up my phone again. This time, I wasn't calling a reporter. I was calling every lawyer whose number I could find, my voice shaking as I asked them if they could help us before it was too late. I must have called 10 different lawyers that afternoon. My voice was shaking as I explained the mess I was in. Most of them listened politely, but said it was too complicated or they were too busy. I was starting to feel desperate. Then I finally got a call back from a woman named Attorney Reynolds. She had a calm, no-nonsense voice. She said she had read the news article and she was very interested in the case. I told her about Frank's new threat, the one about going after Sarah criminally. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's a bluff. It's a scare tactic. The work she did was for you, and you were a vice president of the company. It's a massive stretch to call that theft. He's trying to panic you into giving up. Don't let him." Hearing a professional say that was like a weight lifting off my chest. For the first time in days, I took a full breath. So what do we do? I asked her. We go to the meeting with the board, she said firmly. And we don't go scared. We go with a list of demands. You and Sarah have all the power right now. The public is on your side. The board knows Frank is a liability. We use that. She agreed to represent both me and Sarah. We met with her the next morning to plan our strategy. It felt good to have a general leading the war. A few hours later, we were all sitting in a fancy conference room. On one side was me, Sarah, and Attorney Reynolds. On the other side were 3 members of the company's board of directors and Linda from HR. Frank was noticeably absent. The head of the board, a serious-looking woman named Ms. Walsh, started the meeting. "This is a very unfortunate situation for everyone," she said. "Our goal today is to find a solution that allows the company to move forward and treats everyone fairly." Then Attorney Reynolds spoke. She was amazing. She was calm but fierce. She laid out our position. She talked about the clear pregnancy discrimination. She talked about the toxic environment Frank created. She talked about the public relations disaster that was only going to get worse if this wasn't resolved properly. Then she slid a single piece of paper across the table. "These are our terms for a settlement," she said. The terms were strong. A full, public apology from the company to Sarah. A significant financial settlement for Sarah for wrongful termination. A separate financial settlement for me for the personal funds I used and for the constructive dismissal I faced. And the non-negotiable condition, Frank Miller had to be fired. The board members looked at the paper. They whispered among themselves for what felt like an hour. Finally, Ms. Walsh looked up. "We are prepared to agree to most of these terms," she said. "We will provide the financial settlements. We will issue a public statement of apology. However, firing our CEO is a very serious step. We would need to negotiate a severance package for him." Attorney Reynolds didn't even blink. There is no negotiation on that point. Frank Miller is the source of this liability and this reputational damage. As long as he is associated with this company, this story will not go away. He goes. Period. The room was tense. I could see the board was struggling. They were scared of Frank too. Just then, the conference room door burst open. Frank himself walked in. His face was red with anger. He must have found out about the meeting. I will not be fired by this board, he yelled, pointing a finger at me. This man is a liar and a criminal. He stole from this company. I will sue him into oblivion. He was unhinged. It was the worst thing he could have done. The board members looked horrified. His outburst proved everything we were saying about him. Ms. Walsh stood up, her voice ice cold. Frank, you are out of line. This is a board meeting. You were not invited. This is my company, he roared. I built it. No, Frank, Ms. Walsh said, her voice dropping. You are an employee. And after this display, the board's decision is clear. You are terminated. Effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. Frank stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. He had lost. He had finally gone too far. 2 security guards entered the room and quietly led him away. He didn't say another word. The fight just went out of him. We had won. The board agreed to all our terms. The paperwork was signed. Sarah got her apology and a settlement that would secure her family's future. I got reimbursed for all the money I paid her, plus a settlement for the harm to my career. Frank was gone. A week later, things were finally quiet. I was at home, trying to figure out what to do with my life. My wife, Maria, was starting to talk to me again. The trust would take a long time to rebuild, but we were trying. Then I got a call from Ms. Walsh, the head of the board. David, she said, the board has been discussing the future of the company. We need new leadership. Honest leadership. We know what you did for Sarah was driven by integrity, even if the method was unorthodox. We would like to offer you the position of interim CEO. I was speechless. After everything that had happened, they wanted me to lead the company. It was the last thing I expected. I told her I needed to talk to my family. I hung up the phone and looked at Maria. I had a new choice to make. Do I go back into that building and try to fix the mess, to build a better company from the wreckage? Or do I walk away with my settlement and start something completely new, something away from all the corporate lies and stress? I didn't know the answer yet. But for the first time in a long time, the choice was finally mine.